So I'm Calum Willins. I'm the UK Aviation Compliance Manager for Airbus operations. I attended Aberdeen University 2006 to 2010, leaving with a degree in history.
Thank you very much. Why did you choose to study at University of Aberdeen?
So initially, I think it was one of the only universities I applied for that was guaranteeing students places in halls of residence.
Mhm.
Living in Edinburgh, I got into Glasgow and Edinburgh as well as Aberdeen in Scotland. But I really did want the full university experience. I wanted to live away from home, and I wanted to live in halls residence as well. So as it was guaranteeing that, it seemed like the sensible choice. It was just far enough away from home that I could still go back when I wanted. But yeah, it was. I went up and visited. It was really nice. I liked what I'd seen, and yeah, decided to make that choice.
Thank you very much. And the next question is, what were some of your favorite memories from Aberdeen?
I think just generally the atmosphere that we had, certainly in the year that I started there. It was in terms of the halls of residence and the people that were there. It was quite a close knit bunch. I really enjoyed the fact that it was an ancient university and we were, having lectures in the sort of old buildings, and there was some history to the place. So yeah, memories are of a nice campus, a nice atmosphere, and generally speaking, a nice city to be a student in.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Did you participate in any student organization or societies?
Yeah, I played for the hockey team, so I was part of the hockey club for 3 of my years,
Mhm.
and played at various different levels depending on the time commitment I could give. But yeah, I enjoyed that.
Thank you. And why did you choose to study history? What did you enjoy the most about it?
Um, I think it was just an interest from school. It was one of the subjects that I was very comfortable in, and one of the subjects that I found the most interesting and looked forward to the class the most. So it made sense to carry that on into a degree, I think.
Thank you. And after that, after your degree at University of Aberdeen, why did you decide to study journalism?
I think, I mean, it's not the best answer in the world, but maybe a lack of other ideas. I'd done some vlogging and some writing on forums and enjoyed the sort of analytical side of writing. And it seemed like a sensible idea at the time. Obviously, it's not ultimately something I ended up doing, but yeah, maybe a sort of mix of personal interest with a little bit of a lack of other ideas. And I certainly didn't think that I was ready to go out into the world and be a full-time employee of an organization.
Thank you. And did you face any obstacles and challenges as a student at University of Aberdeen?
I don't think so. I think my time there was extremely enjoyable. I think I did everything I wanted to do. I maybe could have done more. I certainly didn't feel like there was anything holding me back from doing that, except maybe myself at times. So yeah, no, a fairly seamless 4 years, I would say.
Thank you. And did you participate in any internships or part-time jobs as a student?
So when I was a student, I think maybe around third year, I got a job as a bouncer. Door supervisor would be what the industry would term them as. In terms of internships, I completed one with a publishing house when I did my postgrad diploma at RGU. But in terms of my time at Aberdeen, there was no internships or anything like that. So it was very much just a part-time job to help supplement an income.
Thank you. And the next question is, can you describe some of your jobs and positions in the past that you had?
So in terms of my career,
Yes.
I started out as a recruitment consultant for a private recruitment company. Um, Very quickly developed and learned that I wanted to work directly for an organisation rather than sort of on behalf of. So took a secondment via the company I was working for. It's a Wood Group PSN, is what it was called at the time, now known as Wood. Got a permanent opportunity with Expro where I had a really happy few years. Still working in recruitment before moving into the operational side of oil and gas. Unfortunately, not long after that, there was the oil price crash and was made redundant. From there, interestingly, as I was working as a doorman at the time, I was running a few venues in the city for sort of one owner operator, and was given the opportunity for the company I worked for to take on a role as an area operations manager. So that was first management opportunity, and then from there I went into aviation, security compliance with Aberdeen Airport, a little bit of terminal operations, developed into a role with ICTS as a compliance and operational manager. Went out to Doha with Qatar Airways, still in that security regulations area. Quickly came home, back to ICTS, and then down to England with Airbus. So quite a varied career so far.
Thank you. So what is your current job responsibilities at Airbus?
So as UK Aviation Compliance Manager, my job is to look after the security of the aerodrome that we have in the middle of our production facility down here in North Wales. We make all the wings for the single aisle aircraft, A320 family, A321 family, as well as the wide-bodied aircraft, the A330 and the A350. This used to be the home of the A380 as well. However, the production on that has stopped. And all these wings are transported to Toulouse, which is our final assembly line. So our aerodrome operates with cargo coming in from other areas of the business for supplies to make wings. And then our cargo out is our completed wings going to the final assembly line. Not a lot of people know we have an operational aerodrome in the middle of a factory, essentially. And that's my job, is to keep that facility safe, to keep it secure, and also to make sure that we are complying with all the regulations set upon us by the Department of Transport.
Thank you. That's very interesting. And next question is, how is working in Qatar different from working in UK?
Very different. I was only there for a short time. I recognised quite quickly that it was maybe the wrong opportunity for me at the wrong time. I was at a stage of life where I felt living in the Middle East, I was missing out on other aspects of life in the UK. It wasn't really the right role for me. It was very desk-based, and that's certainly not something that I enjoy doing 100% at the time. But living in Doha was very different culture. Enjoyable in some ways, very relaxed. But yeah, I would say that I made a determination nice and quickly that I wanted to return to the UK and continue my career back here.
Thank you for your answer. Next question is, some of the major and most interesting projects that you've been involved in regarding to aviation.
Going back to the start of my career at Aberdeen Airport, the central search, which if you've travelled through any time recently, is fairly new. I mean, that goes back to 2017. So when I came on board, that had not been installed yet. So part of my early career was helping in the installation of the new security area and helping to manage that transition from the old to the new, which was a completely different way of working for all the staff. It was completely different for the passengers travelling out of Aberdeen, and is something that they continue to benefit from to this day. Another interesting period was my time at Glasgow Airport, where we were trialling the new C3 X-rays, which are now being installed across the country. You'll see most of the airports in the UK with over 1 million passengers, all the airports in the UK with over 1 million passengers will have C3 screening technology within the next year. Some are already at 100%. Aberdeen Airport is one of those airports. So a lot of technological advances, a lot of real interesting projects. And is one of the things that I love most about working in aviation is really that variety and that scope of work that you get to cover.
Thank you very much. Can you describe a little bit your career at ICTS?
Yeah, so ICTS are a third-party provider of aviation security services to the industry. When I was at Aberdeen Airport, the security function was essentially outsourced to ICTS. The opportunity I had was to go across to the new provider and become the operations manager for the Aberdeen business. That was great. It gave me a different perspective to working for the airport directly. It became more of a client relationship, which again needed some adapting. But I enjoyed working for ICTS. It certainly expanded my knowledge, because I went from working for one airport to working for a company that covered multiple airports and multiple different operations. So by the time that I left Aberdeen, I had increased my knowledge in areas such as hold baggage screening, operations rooms, and again, that continued at Glasgow Airport, where we did a different variety of work, including cabin baggage, hold baggage, but we also did airline security. So again, working for a company like ICTS definitely allowed me to expand that base of knowledge that I had, maybe more so than working for an airport directly at the time would have done.
Thank you very much. And next question is, how do you effectively maintain high standards for security and compliance with regulatory guidelines?
So, and this is from my experience, of course, everybody's different. A really sound baseline knowledge. So one of the first things I did on gaining my first aviation role was to put myself through the training that security officers and supervisors would go through. It wasn't my job, it wasn't part of my role, but it gave me a much better understanding of how the regulations fed into the operation. So that's the first thing, is a really good base level understanding. The second thing is having a really good compliance regime. So, some people might think it's controlling, some people might think it's micromanaging. I think in the realm of compliance, whether it's in aviation or other industries, you do need to have a good oversight. You do need to have a good compliance regime in order to ensure that you are continually checking the work that's being done, continually looking at ways to improve the work being done, and obviously making sure that you're keeping up to speed with any regulatory changes that might be taking place. Making sure you've got a good network with industry peers is very important. I speak a lot to former colleagues. I speak a lot to other colleagues within the industry who are part of working groups. And that's really helped as well. So yeah, a few things there that really help me do the job that I have to do.
Thank you. And the next question is, can you discuss your career as HR practitioner? What did you enjoy and what did you not enjoy?
I'd maybe not call it HR practitioner. I think maybe some HR practitioners might sort of take issue with me calling myself that. I think more pure recruitment would be the way I describe it. Yes, within HR functions, but my sort of role, my knowledge is really down that recruitment strand. And you know what, that's really helped me, because there's been roles that I've done within security operations and aviation where recruitment has been a part of that. So again, having a really sound baseline knowledge of a recruitment process and how it works and how to manage candidates has really helped me in my current career. Working for AWS not long after I came back from Qatar, it really has benefited me working for a large organization like that, coming into another large organization in Airbus. So yeah, every role that I've done has kind of played its part in feeding into what I do now. But yeah, recruitment's always been important as well, and I'm glad I have that experience, because I have sort of leaned back on it and needed it at times.
Thank you very much. It's very interesting. The next question is, as a student, have you ever thought you would end up in aviation security and management?
It certainly wasn't part of a plan leaving uni. I'm not sure I can claim to have had much of a plan other than sort of get a job, get some experience, and see where it led. After a couple of years doing security operations for Security Group, the role that came up in Aberdeen Airport just seemed very interesting. It seemed to me like a natural progression in terms of the way that the security industry works, moving into a slightly more regulated position. So yeah, certainly wasn't a plan, but something that I'm really glad that I've done.
Thank you. And what are some ways you would recommend for students trying to enrich their network, like improve it?
Yeah, I mean, it's always difficult networking as a student because I kind of feel like it's peer to peer networking, and you know you do the most of your networking and your friendship making is other students, which might not necessarily help you in gaining that first position. One of the things that I found extremely useful was actually having a job, and although it was as a doorman, a bouncer, whatever people want to call it, I actually did a significant amount of networking in that role. And the first job that I got after leaving uni in that recruitment company was through somebody I had met while working on a bar called Amicus Apple in Aberdeen, which isn't there anymore. So yeah, I think that part-time job and the opportunity to meet people who were at different levels within their career and working in different organizations was really important in terms of building and growing a network. Could I have done more while at university to join networking groups? Possibly. I don't think that was as big a factor in 2006 to 10 as it probably is now. RGU was probably the more progressive university at the time in terms of internships and career progression, because it was a lot more vocational in terms of the degrees that people would go to RGU to do, journalism being one of them. But yeah, I do think that Aberdeen and other universities in Aberdeen's position have probably grown that ability to help their students network with industry professionals, even when you're doing a degree like history, which perhaps doesn't naturally feed into any specific career.
Yes, thank you very much. Following up this question, in what aspects your degrees in history and journalism help you in aviation industry?
So if you'd asked me a few years ago, I'd have probably said not very much. But
Mm-hmm.
on reflection, I don't think that's true. I think part of my job now is to read the regulations and interpret them and try to put them into practice in an operational setting. History is very much an interpretation of what you're reading. So, you know, you read something and then you produce based on what you've read. And it's not dissimilar to part of my role in terms of the regulations and compliance in aviation. So, do I think back now and see it in a slightly different way? Yeah, I think so. I think that definitely helped in terms of giving me a baseline skill set that I've been able to take forward and actually use every day in the role I do now. So yeah, journalism maybe along the same lines, but certainly I think back to that learning during my history degree and think, yeah, I do use some of that knowledge. I do use some of that interpretive baseline knowledge now and on a daily basis.
Thank you. What advice would you give to students struggling with transition from academia world to professional world?
Interesting one. Yeah, because I think I found that very difficult. You know, going from living sort of a student lifestyle to trying to live as a professional or a young professional. I think they've just got to know that it is a big change, especially if you're stepping into a very corporate or industrial environment. You know, going into it with your eyes open, going into it knowing that not everything is going to be fantastic. There's going to be knocks along the way. There's going to be things that you are really unfamiliar with and they feel really uncomfortable. But, you know, I think you've just got to push through that at times and then really decide whether what you're doing is for you. It's also very important, I think, that if you've given something a good chance, and you're not enjoying it or it isn't for you, then you know there's no shame in admitting that, and there's certainly no barriers to making a different choice. It's as a more seasoned professional, I went to Qatar, I didn't enjoy it, and I came home without a job. So we all get to a point where we have to make these very adult decisions, and whether you're a young professional starting out and you've really decided that something's not for you, or whether you've been in your career for a few years and you still want to make a change, I think that's the best advice I can give, which is if you really want to make a conscious effort to change and go in a different direction, there's no right and wrong time to do that. It's really down to what you feel is the best course of action for you. And I think a lot of young people forget that, and they think that the expectation is that they get a job after university and that's what they must do. And they, if they leave too soon, it's going to look bad. I think, give it a fair chance. But if you genuinely believe that it's not for you, or you want to try a different path, then, go for it. Don't think that you're doing the wrong thing.
Thank you very much. And the next question is, what advice would you give to students struggling with stress?
I think the advice would be that it's natural. I think that the people need to talk about it. If you are stressed, don't bottle it up. Don't try to cope with it just on your own. Know that there's probably 99% of the people around you feeling exactly the same way. And the more you talk to them about it, the more you will figure that out. You have peers to talk to, you have friends and family to talk to, you have, not a lot of people consider it, but, you have your lecturers and your tutorial leads. They were all students, they've all been in a university environment as well. And obviously, I think the one thing that I probably wouldn't have been aware of as a student was the options open to me in terms of speaking to the university themselves if I was feeling overwhelmed or stressed. And I know that's obviously something that a lot of universities have improved in the last, decade or so since I left. But yeah, it's just really important not to suffer in silence is the key to that. Just make sure that you speak to somebody. Make sure that you know that being stressed is a completely normal feeling, and there are ways that you can cope and mechanisms that you could use to try and help.
Thank you very much for your advice. And two more questions. And so if you could go back in time, would you change anything about your experience as a student at University of Aberdeen, or would you give yourself any advice?
I mean, I had a fantastic time, but maybe for the wrong reasons in terms of academia. Maybe older, wiser Calum might go back and tell younger Calum just to focus a little bit more on the academic side and a little less on the social side, because I think I could have had just as good a time and achieved a slightly better performance in my classes and in my degree. Not that it's made a massive amount of difference to, what I do now, but I do think that I could have put a little bit more effort in, and I could have maybe achieved something a little bit more. Whether that would have led me to another decision in terms of what masters to do or what postgrad to do, I don't know. I certainly don't have any regrets, but I do think that a little bit of advice to younger Calum to maybe just concentrate a bit more on studies and a little less on socialising might have helped.
Thank you. And the last question, where do you see yourself in the future in terms of career?
Well, it's a difficult one. I certainly hope it's still in aviation. Very much enjoy, or have enjoyed the last 6, 7, 8 years in this industry. I'm just coming up on 10 months with Airbus, and one of the best things about this organisation is that they really do promote mobility in terms of the employees that are here, and whether you want to continue in the expert area that you're in or expand out into different areas, the opportunity is there. So, relatively early days for me at Airbus, very much enjoying that settling in period and getting to know the organization and the role that I'm doing. So yeah, I don't really have too much of a plan for the immediate future. I think it's going to be a couple of years in this role before I start to look at other opportunities, but I certainly see sort of aviation and Airbus in that medium term plan. So we'll just have to see. But and maybe that's another important piece of advice. People do have 5-year plans, and everybody likes to talk about that, and that's great. I do think that there should be a framework of a plan in the background. However, I think it's also important to remember that there has to be some flexibility in that. And if something doesn't happen the way that you want it to happen, or things happen slightly differently, it's not to worry about it. It's just to kind of go with it and make the best of it. So that's what I'm going to do right now with Airbus. I'm going to make the best of this opportunity, and we'll see what happens next.